really beginning to turn a major corner in terms of our ability to attract investors, to get things going. We're in a great position because what's happened over this period is that Detroit has obviously just, had tremendous rebound and so on. And that's really good for us, and it's something we need to take advantage of. So one of the ways, what I mean by that is, housing down in Midtown and downtown is so hard, it's so costly, and the prices are going up so much that we could, on our eastern end, begin to be an entity. We could begin to attract young people, or people, it could be anybody from there, who is looking for affordable housing. They work down there, go to school, and they want to be close to the campus. Well, Dearborn offers the greatest opportunity. That's important because those areas, if we don't make them attractive to young families, then they'll get whatever comes, and then that will affect the next area, the next area. So, I look around, you can go around the communities outside of Dearborn around us, and you see that happening. They've lost interest in terms of getting new young families to come. And any city that doesn't get new families to come in and make their way and settle in their town are going to fail. They're going to be in trouble. Things happen way before people see them happen. And so we're working on a number of things. We had from that O'Reilly Auto Parts coming down to Michigan Avenue. They're local people, and they're going to commit a lot of money, and we're already meeting with them. We've done some preliminaries. It's going to be just a dynamic project there. So we know that's coming. The other thing I talked about earlier was the housing. We've got some people who have the property and are looking to do some high-rise housing, new housing, not remodeling, but new housing. And the other thing that we're talking about on Warren Avenue is creating an image on Warren Avenue of the Middle East, so that we can draw people like Greektown used to, when Greektown actually existed, where your friends or relatives come in from out of town, you're in Oakland, Macomb County, say, I got to take you here, I got to show you this place, you won't believe it. So we have a library where we're going to have a visitor center, and this is already in play. We're working on it, we're developing it now.
This is one on Oakman and Watertown.
Yeah. So we're going to use that as a visitor center, and we're going to help people understand what kinds of businesses are there, what opportunities for them to go in and see what's going on, bring their friends, and so on, eat, drink, have buy goods and services. So the whole idea is, and this year you'll start to see some of the imaging, because the board is beginning to kind of zero in on what's the main nameplate, what is it going to say, what's it going to look like. But it's going to define. There's going to be an entry point where you're coming into Dearborn, and on both sides, and that's going to happen in Dix Verner too. We already know we're going to have these big things that sort of showcase. Here you are. You're in Dearborn now. They'll have their names, and both are working on their names. So they're trying to come up with what they think will make the most sense. But we're going to create identities. We're going to say these are the places you want to know, you want to come to, you want to bring your friends to. That's what we're working on. So we can generate a lot more business. I mean, obviously, the more people we bring in from outside of our area, the more revenue that people can obtain. Well, there's only one person drawing them into the mud. Only one person is going out to the media and spreading it all over greater, Detroit. So I can't speak for that person. My position is I'd rather just send my messages directly to the voters in Dearborn and focus on that. And that's what I'll be doing, is I'm not going to the media, I'm not running around with that. I'm going to tell the story, have been, and will continue to tell the story to the people who live in Dearborn, who have a stake in our voters. I think it's unfortunate, but everybody has their right to do it, but it's unfortunate to go out and keep putting Dearborn out in the media in ways that is not necessarily long-term going to help our community. They didn't need to buy property. They didn't need to buy the property on Michigan Avenue, but they bought the property on Michigan Avenue because they wanted to create an environment that would attract young talent. So that was a conscious effort, not because they needed that space, but because that space would be representative of the new spirit, of the new image of Ford Motor Company. So the amount of money they spent on Michigan Avenue is really small compared to the whole footprint that they have. Yeah, about 60 million. Yeah.
So there are people saying that you had nothing to do with it.
Well, that's not true. Now, this week, Ford is going to come out and actually acknowledge that this was key and that I played a role. So, and I did. I mean, you know, it's not
What kind
about
of role
anything.
did you play, Mayor?
Well, two things. They were both critical. At one point, one of the key parcels that they needed to get, and remember, they weren't going to do this if it was going to cost them too much money. Some people didn't get included. They would have liked to acquire their property, but they were asking for more than it was ever worth, so they just blew them off. So one of the critical spaces, the person was willing to sell, but they wouldn't close the deal unless they knew who was buying it and what they were going to do with it, because they were afraid it might hurt their other properties. Okay. And so there was a roadblock, and so they approached me and said, you know, what can you do? I said, well, I think I have a good trust relationship with this person. Let me sit down with them and see. So I sat down and said, I can't tell you who it is, I can't tell you who it is, but I can guarantee you, if you trust me, that this project will not hurt your other investments, it will greatly enhance them. And he decided to go ahead and do it, and that is one of them. The other one was with the MEDC. We caught it at a bad time, Michigan Economic Development Corporation. Now, I'm on the board. I was appointed to the board. I'm the one public member. So, so what happened is there was a decision that they were going to kind of have this, you know, cookie cutter. Everybody is eligible to get up to $1.5 million of support if they meet all the other criteria. And before, it had been based on the scale or what was the nature of the project. So I was able to go up and say, well, look, you know, what you're doing doesn't make any sense because you're using the same standard for some small projects as for larger projects. There ought to be some kind of recognition of how much is the proposer doing, how much are they putting on the table, and then have some way of matching it, because they needed $3 million to make their finances work. I mean, they're very deliberate, and they knew exactly. So we worked through it, and the state finally said, yes, okay, we'll go with that model, and they did, and they got what they needed so we could go forward. So those are two examples.
So you brought to the table $3 million.
Well, at 1.5 more than what they were willing to put on, because we showed them that would be foolish, because then this project doesn't go forward, well, then what have we gained? And the state's contribution is still really low compared to what they're doing and what the city is putting in, because we put in some of the infrastructure stuff, you know, just want to make that. Now, the point is that people have to have the skill sets that are required, and we've tried to do that, like police and fire were two that we could work with, because there is a good bit of turnover there. So we created a program, and actually it's been around for a while, but we got it going, and it's where students in our schools, and we go out to our local schools, and we encourage people to consider careers in these fields, and then they can come and they can become, you know, there's a couple steps to it, but they can work up, and even in high school they can begin to come and learn about being police or fire and so on. Then from there, we'll pay for them when they go to college. We'll pay for their 2 years of college, and, you know, so that they can get ready to take the test, and we actually give them a stipend, like, you know, 10 hours of employment every week for that, and plus we pay for their school, and then they can decide. They don't have to, but if they decide to then become a police officer, or firefighter, then they go in. Right now, in the police department, it's been incredibly successful. We've just, in a short time, really increased the number of young people coming into it, and that's women and men, and so that is working good. I think in the fire department, there's a lot of resistance. There's a resistance to having women in there. So we still have a way to go. I mean, there's a challenge there, and it's something we've got to deal with and so on to get through. Then on the rest of them, it's like the nature of the job is a thing, because the jobs all have classifications, okay, and so on, and each classification has a requirement of what you have to have an attainment to be able to be hired there. So those are things we have to get out to the young people. We've been trying to do it through the colleges and stuff to get them to be aware of what jobs there are, and to think about making sure that the curriculum they're taking, if they're interested, is in sync with what the job requirements are, because that's how it gets, you know, when the board is considering it, it's based on them meeting the criteria for the job itself as the description of the job. Okay, so that, but I'm, you know, I mean, there is no resistance on my part or my administration to not try and get people from the community. I prefer, it used to be, and one thing just as an anecdote, it used to be that cities could require, and Dearborn was one that did for years and years and years, could require that you had to be a resident of Dearborn to get a job, and it was the state legislature that took that away. The state legislator trumped us and said you can no longer do this. This is back before I was mayor or anything. But I mean, so just so people understand, if we had our choice, we'd require people from Dearborn to be the ones hired. But the state legislature took that away from us too, because this is the thing. Last year in the summer, okay, I had both knees replaced. So that was the catalyst. And they told me before I got my knees replaced, they said if you will lose weight, it'll make it much easier for your recovery. You know, you'll have better results. So I lost the weight. I had the knees replacement, went very well, and I've been the same weight for over a year. So I haven't lost weight in the last year. I lost it, you know, for last summer, and it's just been steady, you know, or the same. But I'm much healthier. That's why I'm much healthier, because now I exercise regularly, because I still do it. So I go to the center with my wife on weekends, and I run in my neighborhood, or, you know, walk more, fast walk, I'll be honest, I'm not running all the time. That is going around, and I had actually two people that called my office, and I talked to them, and they were very concerned because they heard from reliable sources that I was, you know, really sick, and I said, well, I get a physical every year, and in this last April I got my physical, and you know, there was nothing wrong, you know, so I'm not on medication, you know, that kind of thing, and so you know, I was surprised. I said, well, where's it coming from? Well, they're saying that, you know, you're really sick, and I guess that's still prevalent. I don't get to all the things that are out there that people are putting. So what I did is Beaumont Hospital had a run through the village, you know, the village, and so I ran, first time I ever ran, I ran a 5K, just so I could show people, look, I just finished running a 5K, first time I ever did in my life, and I didn't have to walk, I ran the whole thing. I was glad to do it for charity, but it was also, hey, is this enough? What do you need? What do you need to believe? Well, I've been in this city for my whole life. I love the city. I have the background, education, experience to really get things done, and I really want to do what I can to really help Dearborn and everybody in it be as successful as possible. And the only way I can do that is if I get reelected. So I'm hoping that people will consider what we've done, what we can do, and I'm going to make sure that, as we've talked here on some of these issues, make sure that we're much more engaged where we have to be. Nobody's perfect, but I definitely think that Dearborn has great opportunities now and into the immediate future, and we need to seize them and make this city great.